2014, which is the year that we went up to the Championship. We were riding high. Warburton, took us up from the Division 1 to the Championship. We were riding high that season. But interestingly, because Matt took over Midtjylland in that same year, and things seemed to accelerate a lot faster with Midtjylland than it did at Brentford. And I know that there was a lot of, again, we don't have to say names of people, but there's a lot of issues in trying to make that transition from Brentford compared to Midtjylland. And it seemed to take a lot longer for things to happen here than it did over there, because within a couple of years they won the league, if I remember rightly. Why do you think that was?
I don't know. I mean, I think promoting to the Premier League is a lot harder than winning the Championship in Denmark, I would say. So it was. I think Brentford did pretty well at the time, and sometimes when you have success, it's harder to change. Whereas Midtjylland, were really struggling at the time. People were really they had to change to keep up with the better teams. So there was maybe more an openness to some of the ideas. I don't know. I mean, some of the ideas have definitely worked well there, and I think that other things have not worked so well there that worked well here. So I wouldn't say it was a lot more successful, but I think it plays into it that Midtjylland was in a different situation, a lot less successful than Brentford was at the time, and that made it more difficult to change things here.
Yeah, so sometime early in early 2015, me and him got into a room and sort of had to try and work out what on earth we were going to do, because we were kind of chucked together and what we're going to do. We had to make up even a job title. We came up with our job title, right? There was no starting point, and we couldn't get down the training ground because we weren't officially employed by the club. So we had to kind of work out what to do with Brentford from the outside, and that was pretty tricky. We didn't have a recruitment team. The only really person that we had who we sort of had on the inside of the training ground, who we trusted and who we got under our wing quite quickly, was Rowan. So we had to try and plan who's the new manager going to be, who are we going to recruit, what's the style of play, and that's very difficult when you're sitting on the outside, and then you have to go in and hope that what you've done works from day one, and it didn't. So then we were behind the curve a little bit already, and obviously then Lee Carsley helped us out, but then obviously getting Dean Smith in gave us that stability to then start to do some of the things that have unfolded over the last 5 years or so.
Do you think it's quite a British thing, because you were struggling to kind of get your ideas across from early days, as opposed to Denmark? So if people are in, let's say for example, football is quite traditional. You're going in with quite untraditional methods, okay? And for the first 2 or 3 years, you found it quite hard to actually instill your methods into the club. Didn't you feel it that way?
No, well, I didn't actually. I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure that people weren't responsive. It's more or less the same stuff who were there now, and actually they were all really, really good. Just what took time was to build that kind of that solid environment and get the right players and the young players coming through, and that just all takes time, right? It wasn't that there was a resistance, I don't think. Most of the time it was just that it took a while for us to kind of consolidate it, get everything pointing in the right direction, review the academy, we closed the academy, and all those things took quite a lot of time. So it took us a couple of years to get things more or less how it's been, I think, for 4 years, where it's been a fairly steady progression of buy young player, develop young player, sell young player, reinvest, and grow it up to where we are now.
Do you think this kind of dual ownership of football clubs, one in England, one in Denmark, is it confused, or has it helped Brentford's evolution? I mean, I know Brentford fans early on were kind of very sceptical, or questioned why are we looing? Why is Matt looking to be spending money? I mean, Matt can spend his money where he wants, obviously, but why isn't he spending double the money on Brentford? Do you think Brentford could have got to the top quicker if it hadn't been for Midtjylland, or has Midtjylland helped in our learning process?
I definitely think it's helped that you had another environment that you could get more experiences from. So you kind of accelerated the number of experiences you had that you can then learn from and use to improve things. I think where there is a big advantage in potentially having more than one club is in the player, creating the right player pathway. And I think what we haven't been able to do is really get the most from that, because the clubs have been more cousins, I would say, where now with Brentford in the Premier League, it's become more like a big brother, little brother relationship, and that means that, say for example, the best players from Midtjylland, when Brentford was in the Championship, would probably have seen themselves going to Premier League or going to Bundesliga, you know. So it was not a natural step to stay within the group. But now there are more opportunities that we need to look at when it comes to exchanging players. So I think we are in a better place with that now. But definitely that there's no doubt that the number of experiences we had at Midtjylland has helped Brentford and vice versa.
I think the key thing for me with Denmark is that we're now massive in Denmark. You know, how many Danes watched our playoff final?
Yeah, it was a big game. But it's right. It allowed us to, you know, some of the Danish players we have at Brentford now, you know, they would probably been looking for a higher level or a bigger club somewhere, but because we had this Danish connection, it almost felt like being in a, you know, it doesn't feel too far from home, really. You know.
Do you think Emiliano was a perfect example of that, where he was caught in between the two, where he was, you know, he went back to Midtjylland to find his form, and he came back, and now he's sort of like, what is the future for Emiliano? Not necessarily what happens with him, but do you think he's a good example of where, you know, Midtjylland were ahead of us and now we're maybe slightly ahead of them?
No, I'm not sure. I think both Emiliano, but also Christian Nørgaard and Mathias Jensen are good examples of players that probably had options to go to bigger clubs, but also chose to come to Brentford for other reasons than just the money or the size of the club. And I think that has helped us because we built a core players there that maybe we were able, you know what, that's one of the reasons I think we've been able to punch a bit above our weight.
So,
I know what's coming next.
Rasmus, Frank Kunyaka. So what's going on?
Good player.
He's a
where did you hear about him?
I heard he's a good player that plays for FCM who wants to play in the Premier League. And what team would he wants to play in the Premier League? And so when he hears a big cheer like that, what team would he like to go to, do you think? I mean, I'm just asking, just fishing.
Could be in for him.
I don't know him. Who is he?
So Phil talked to Rasmus, so you can sort it out amongst yourselves now, yeah?
Yeah, we have a running joke about how easy it is to get players out of Denmark and Midtjylland because the negotiators over there are so soft, such a soft touch. we can walk all over those guys, no problem.
I've never heard you so tongue-tied.
It's going to be a long conversation to have, like
with yourself.
Long negotiation.
How long have we got? Shall I move on?
Go on.
Okay, right. So he's coming. Right, who's next? Where should we go to now? Should we go to France?